Hey everyone, welcome to Kings Talk presented by Cap City Crown. This is Tony. With me as always, we have John. You already know that though. The Kings, man. The Kings. Last time we were talking week ago today, the Kings were on a 3-game losing streak, right? A week later, they're on a 3-game winning streak and playing some of their best defense of the year. That beam is getting lit, I guess 3 nights in a row. But tough stretch ahead now. 6 games on the road, 2 week road trip. So, John, what's going on? I'm just gonna kick it off to you.
Well, um, I think the most important thing to take away, of course, winning 3 games before a tough road trip is a big deal. But I think we need to spend a good deal of time talking about this defense because it's incredible. If just for reference, in their first 15 games, the defensive rating of this team was 114.9. Right now, as it stands, it's 112 even. And in their last 7 games in particular, it's 106.1. Uh, isn't that fucking incredible?
Dude, yeah, I think in their last 7, I think they're the third or fourth best
Yeah.
defensive team in the NBA, which
Mm-hmm.
is incredible because it just is. I mean, the Kings needed to play defense, right? That was really their one weakness. I mean, not their one, but the biggest hole in this team's success, and they're playing
Yeah.
it at a high level right now. Everything just seems to be clicking, and it's. I mean, we're on a 3-game winning streak for a reason, right?
Yeah. I mean, this offense, as you're alluding to there, could score with anybody.
Exactly.
Multiple players have said that. It was even like that late last year after they got Sabonis. And it was always just a question of whether or not the defense could come along. And it really has. And over the last 7, of course, but really over particularly these last 3, they won these 3 games with just excellent defense. Some of the best defense, even against the Phoenix Suns, they played some good defense,
Mm-hmm.
Um, Booker was hitting tough shots, you know what I mean? But these guys have put it together in a way that is kind of almost surprising, just the acceleration in the last week and a half alone. Because a week ago, we were talking about, the defense is making tremendous strides. It's not like we were saying they were terrible or anything, but we were like, can they get up to the middle part or even the top half of the league defensively? And we were both optimistic that at some point this season, maybe in a couple of weeks down the line, that they would be able to do that. But it's just they played their next 3 games and they just stepped on the gas in that regard. It was really incredible. They responded. They were listening to the podcast.
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah, those 3 listens we got last week were Davion, Kaziak, Paul, and Chimezi Metu, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you could go down the line. Uh, Over the last week or so, I know I've been really pointing out that Sabonis is playing. Well, not just me. I know the Kings Film Room Twitter guy. He's been making a lot of good points and having the video examples on Twitter of just Domas playing fundamentally sound defense. You don't have to be a shot blocker, and that's what I've been pointing out, calling into uh, attention to the SF Chronicle article from earlier this year about him not wanting a shot blocker. He didn't need a shot blocker. If you can have your guys be a vertical presence with good positioning, timing, and commitment, a 6'6" guy can be just as effective as a 7-footer. And that's rung true with Sabonis, and it's rung true down the line. One of the things that you've seen in the last 3 games in particular, or last 4, because one of the prime examples of this happened in the Suns game, and Brendan Nunes pointed this out in a post-game press conference with Mike Brown, I think against the Pacers after that win. He asked, pointing out the fact that there's a lot of guards playing the low man and doing it well. And he asked, was it hard for him to do that? And it's, the point is that, you saw Terrence Davis not step up against the Suns. Mike Brown calls a timeout. Physically shows him positioning wise out in the paint during the timeout where he should have been, how he should have been there. And then like 2 minutes later in the game, he gets a charge. He draws a charge, defending the rim and defending the lane. And you see Davion get charges like every game. You see Fox
Yeah.
doing it at times. You saw
Barnes.
Paula do it even. Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's down there, anybody that's playing the low man, it's not just Sabonis. And even Metu's had some good moments. Sabonis has had some really good moments. It seems like there's always like 3 or 4 really fundamentally beautiful moments in each game where he plays great defense. And it just seems like all of them can do it. And it's just, if you want to talk about switching, if you want to talk about being a cohesive unit, it's just like, that seems like one of the biggest indications of that. And that has been one of the things that's been standing out to me and many others, as you all know. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think the switching, I've noticed, it's been really good the last 3 games for sure. And that's just something that really just popped out to me on that defense is that it just seems like everyone, I don't know, just the rotations are just perfect. Like there's never like a guy just wide open. Like, I don't know. It's been nice to see. And you can see their hard work paying off with Mike Brown. So, I mean, just, hats off to the Kings. They they stepped it up big time. Just kind of over, like you said, like, well, yeah, maybe in a couple weeks or so, but no, they just kind of got right down to it against the God, who did we play after the Suns? I don't even remember. Was it? Do you
That
remember?
was the Pacers.
The Pacers. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Pacers game.
And
That
then
was
the
just a
back-to-back.
blowout too. I thought it was going to be like an intense game with Halliburton and Hield's return and Sabonis'
Yeah.
first game against the Pacers, but man, the Kings just blew them out, and their defense played a big part in that. And they, quieted Halliburton big time, and man,
Yeah.
yeah, it all started right
Halliburton,
there.
by the end of the game, Halliburton was making boneheaded decisions, very uncharacteristic of him.
Yeah, yeah.
And he had like 2 turnovers, I think, in the fourth quarter. And that's just tough. The defense was overbearing. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it is a testament to the communication, which I think Harrison Barnes a couple of weeks ago noted. He's like, yeah, that's kind of one of the things that doesn't happen naturally, or doesn't happen, I guess, in an instant. Like it really has to happen over the course of time. And that's kind of why I was like, oh, this will take a couple more weeks. But it's just the communication's clicking. And in terms of rotations, switches, help, all these things, it's probably all that. It's probably the communication that's the backbone of all that meat that we're seeing in this beautiful defensive stretch that, based on Mike Brown's track record, based on more particularly the track record of the Warriors defense last season, the Kings should continue to be able to play like this and continue moving up the rankings. Now, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily mean they're like top 5 defensively. Honestly, the way they're playing in the last 3 games, that wouldn't be like totally crazy. But, top half of the league is a completely realistic thing right now. And it's been awesome. And just being able to stay to task, too. I mean, like, you got Levine and DeRozan coming in. And, Levine, tip of the cap to the guy. He's longer, he's taller, he's tougher to guard. Let him go off. Let him get his 41. Contain DeRozan. Don't let him slow down the game. That's what Davion Mitchell was talking about. You don't want him to slow down the game, dictate the pace and get into a rhythm. And they, mostly because of KZ Okpala, did an excellent job of, keeping tabs on him. And it wasn't just Okpala, Barnes played some great defense on him. Keegan Murray was excellent in the second half against him. As were other guys, just in terms of having to switch. And there's just all sorts of things that you could say about this defense. It's just been terrific. And the head of the snake, it's Davion off the bench, but it's still the head of the snake and the guy that's been playing great defense despite all the offensive struggles and the dealing with the bug and maybe some soreness or whatever. De'Aaron Fox has been playing terrific defense, totally engaged 24/7 over there, making plays, picking pockets. I mean, he's been awesome there.
Yeah, he's been great. That was a part of his game. He really needed to step up if he wanted to take that next step to that elite level, that all-star level. And yeah, like he hasn't really been doing it on offense the last couple of games. He says he has a bug. I know, there's been a bug going around my friends and family, so it doesn't really surprise me that.
Have you been hanging out with the Kings in the Kings locker room? Did you get
Dude,
Trey Lyles and De'Aaron Fox sick?
I can't say. They signed me to a G League contract. Anjali Ranadive signed me. That was her first big that was her first big signing. But
Yeah. Fortunately for Tony, he likes her music, so that worked
yeah,
out.
she's great. But yeah, so he's been kind of sick the last, it seems, 4 games, 5 games, because he has not looked good really. I think in the last 6 games since that 3-game losing streak began. So yeah, it's just, you know, at least he's still engaged on the defensive end, even though he can't bring it like he usually does on the offensive end. But it starts with defense, right? And the defense really picked up last 3 games, and they've won all 3 because of it, even with less than usual performances from Fox.
It's interesting because in a one way, if you really want to take a positive light on this in terms of Fox, it's interesting because when you're talking about, okay, this team could score with anybody, and that's how they won games, not necessarily their defense in their first 15 games or so. And it's like Fox was killing it, like scoring wise, nonstop. And then basically, since the Atlanta game, he's only gotten to 20 points once, and that was against Boston, and he only got 20. Since then, it's been under 20. And yet, it just seems like in that stretch, the defense took a turn, and he continues to kind of, like Mike Brown said it after the Bulls game. Fox on that end of the floor has been so terrific, and he's setting the tone, and you can see it. And I feel like the last couple of games, when you're looking at the notes, when you're kind of going over the game summaries and stuff, there's more Fox defensive highlights than there are offensive highlights. And it was kind of close kind of all season, but his offensive highlights were so killer, especially late in the game. But defensively, just lately, it's maintained the same, if not gone up. And so in a way, it's like he's leading this team. This team kind of is led by him in such an interesting way because, the offense with him, and then it seems like the defense without the offense letting up, because it just seems like 6, 7, 8 guys are always in double figures for this team. But I don't know. Fox defensively has been awesome.
Yeah, and it's something you love to see as well. He's a leader, and he's leading that side of the ball. Something you've never really seen him do before, so that's great. But
off of Fox, because I think we spoke about the defense enough. Or maybe not enough, but
yeah,
maybe more stuff will come up. But that's off the top of my head there. But off of Fox, someone who's just seems like since basically maybe November started, has just been playing excellent game after excellent game, is Domantas Sabonis. And it's I don't know. I think you posted on social media that he's got by far the most games with 10 points, at least 5 rebounds and 5 assists.
10 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. So
yeah.
he leads the league right now. As of right now, this is Monday afternoon. So he has 12 of those such games, followed by Jokic with 11, Giannis and Doncic with 7, and then I believe Embiid and Josh Giddey with 6. So, I mean, that's a good little stat line to lead with. He really does it all. I mean, yeah, he just does it all. His scoring is, I mean, I would say it's his third best skill, really. I think it's rebounding. It might even be passing and then rebounding. He's such a good passer. And just the way he facilitates the offense and everything goes through him. And just when he's off the floor, you can just feel everything like, oh, God, like, let's get Sabonis back in here because we need some offense going. It gets a little stagnant without him.
Yeah. I feel like all three, I feel like not to correct you, but just to make it clear, all 3 elements of his game that you pointed out, the scoring, passing, and rebounding, they're all elite. Because even when they throw it down to him, he's finesse or strength. It doesn't matter. He's going to get away to the rim.
Yeah.
To score, get to the line. It's just been incredible.
And you know what's also incredible is that he's really good in the post, right? But I don't know the last time he's missed a 3. I feel like he's hit like his last 8 threes in a row or so. And he took a couple against who was it? The Clippers in the first quarter of that game. He
Mm-hmm.
nailed both of them, and his
Zubac was
stroke.
giving it to him.
Yeah, and his stroke looks good, and he's been making them. I don't think he missed one in November. I think he went like 0 for 4 or something in October, and then went like 8 for 8 in November. And I know we're in December now, but I think that trend is continuing. If he can hit those shots on a high clip, like even if he only takes one or two a game, I mean that's just something the defenders are gonna have to be aware of, and it's just gonna make him that much better. It's gonna make Sabonis that much better, which is crazy to think about because that dude
In his
does everything well.
in his last 4 games, he's shooting 71.4% from three.
Yeah,
I don't know. That just cracks me up.
no, yeah, he's money from. I mean,
But
he
that just
only
unlocks
takes them.
everything.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
hey, dude, and yeah, it's like top of the three keys. But yeah, no, you're right. I'll hand it off to you. It does
No,
unlock
no, no.
everything.
Keep going. It's just
No, I
it. I
he's
mean,
crazy.
it's obvious, but he pointed it out. I think after the win against the Clippers, after he hit those two, but it's just like, man, if he's able to do that, it's just like you have to bring the center out, especially if you're playing a guy like Zubac, who's going to be. I never know if I'm saying some of those.
I think it's
Uh,
yeah. I think you're saying it right.
Zubox or is it Zubac? I don't know.
I think it's Zoo Box
Okay.
or Zoo.
Well, I probably we probably won't have to say it for the rest of the podcast, so we'll skip the lesson.
Yeah,
Um, we bring a traditional big out. He's got to hit that. And so he's got a way to undermine whoever's out there. He can compromise whatever the strength of his defender or the defense is in a lot of ways. And being the center of the offense, having everything run through him, essentially, leading the team in assists. It's like, shit, man. You don't want to be that opposing defense. That's
no,
it's insane. He's just so dynamic, and that he hits the mid range pretty good. Like he's
yeah,
been pretty good on that this year. I don't know what his percentage is on mid range shots, but
probably decent.
um, yeah, I'll look that
He's
up. But
shooting. I think he shot 60% overall in the month of November. So he's probably around that on the season, right? But
yeah,
I don't know what he
um,
is exactly. But yeah, I know
yeah,
he
he's
shot.
shooting. Yeah, he's shooting just about 60%, 59.9% on the season.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Um, that's fucking nuts.
Yeah, he's having a year. He's an all star. He's an all.
Remember,
He's
well,
what?
just remember when he was missing point blank shots in like the first
I
5-6 games.
Yeah, it's so weird.
He also
It's
wasn't
so
really getting
odd.
calls. And then like he noted that he was started to be nicer. I think at one point he said because someone asked him, it's like, yeah, you've been kind of keeping out of foul trouble and stuff. He's like, yeah, it's just like you got to get down to like looking at the tape, correcting the mistakes that you're making, and also being nicer to the refs. So that was really funny.
Hey, I mean that's fair. I mean Domas, as much as I love the dude, he always has this like expression after he doesn't agree with the foul call. He's like covers his mouth. He's like, what? What? Do you ever what expression I'm talking about? And
It's
if
kind
I
of
was a
like when
ref, I'd be like, dude, shut up. Like, like I was an umpire in little league, as little league, whatever. But it's like, like I'm a human. Like you're gonna yell at me? Like you think you're getting that call now? Like no. And it wasn't the kids who were yelling at me, but the coaches, right? But it's like borderline calls. It's not going your way now. So, um, I bet these guys are a lot better than me, and it doesn't affect them as much. But I mean, for sure, these guys are. If you're gonna be nice to the refs, they're probably gonna be a little nicer to you as well. So I mean, that's
yeah.
that he took that
Also,
into account.
there's
Yeah.
there's an emphasis by the league this year. I think um, Mark Jones might have pointed it out on a broadcast, and I know like Halliburton was kind of saying it in reference to his technical that he got against the Kings, because he just said that he just raised his voice, and that's what they explained to him. They're like, "Yeah, you're getting the tea because you were talking too loudly," and so it's like they want. And Mark Jones pointed out that they want to put an emphasis on respecting the game. So, you know, it works especially in your favor, not just to get calls, but also to avoid technicals, I guess. But that's just if that's the overall intent of the league and the officiate of the referees to enhance the respect of the game or whatever they're saying. then it's really smart for Domas to kind of take that turn.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
keep it
that.
on Domas. But yeah, go
Mhm.
ahead.
I was gonna just keep talking about refs, but no. Let's get back on track here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but we kind of talk about this off and on. Sometimes it comes up, sometimes it doesn't. But it's interesting to always think about or ask who's the best player on the Kings, and just that simple question, because you have something where we were kind of alluding to it with Fox earlier, that like the team kind of goes as he goes, in a way.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, the very structure of the team would collapse without Sabonis in a way. Um, who is the best? Who, just based on the simple question of who's the best player on this team? And like, don't think about it too much. Just that question. Like,
It,
who's your answer?
it's a bonus, and it's because he's the backbone of the team. Like even though Fox hasn't really been playing his best as of late, the Kings are still winning because Sabonis is doing what Sabonis is doing. Right? He's facilitating that offense. He's I mean, over these last 3 wins, he's playing at an elite level. Like the Bulls game, triple double. The Clippers game, like 24 points on 10 of 11 shooting. Um,
Yeah,
and I think he had like 11 rebounds and 7 assists. I mean, that
five
dude.
rebounds and 6 assists against the
Okay,
Clippers.
yeah, you're right. He didn't have a lot of rebounds that game, surprisingly. But yeah, it's just like that dude's our best player, and like I could very well change in maybe like 2 weeks if Fox gets back to scoring 30 points a game. But I don't know. It's just Sabonis. He just like the team needs him, right? I mean, he's literally like the structure of that offense. Everything goes through him, and if he's rolling, that team's rolling. And the same can be said with Fox. But really, if Sabonis is rolling, I think it matters a little more than if Fox is rolling because Sabonis affects everyone around him. Where Fox is more of that score first kind of guy who can get buckets at a great level, but he just doesn't make others around him better like Sabonis does, and Fox does. He makes
Mm.
those around him better, but not the way Sabonis does. And I think, I mean, just that alone just shows his importance to the foundation of this team, right? And I
Yeah.
I would much rather like, and like something I would never want to happen. But if I had to choose to like have someone out for 10 games, I'd rather have Fox out for 10 games over Sabonis because I think the Kings would have a better chance of winning more games with Fox out than Sabonis out. I think he just matters that much more to this team.
hmm Yeah, I think put another way, it's like nobody's quite like Fox, just like nobody's quite like Sabonis. But at the end of the day, Sabonis is irreplaceable. Like, it's hard to think of a guy. I mean, like Jokic maybe, but it's hard to think of a guy that you know that you could replace Sabonis with. And that's no disrespect to Fox. It's just I think that's just an added element as to why Sabonis is the guy. Um, and at the end of the day, they're both really, 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 really good, and they're both deserving of an All Star bid, especially if they continue winning games. Um, but it's just like I think Sabonis is a lock. You know.
I think so too. And you know what I think is going to be so funny this year is that I believe Sabonis and Halliburton are both going to be all stars this year because Halliburton's having a really good year in Indiana, leading the league in assists. I don't mean to transition to him, and I'm not going to, but I just think it's.
Oh, we could.
I mean, well, maybe we will, but it's just so funny because I think Sabonis is 100% an all star. I mean, the Kings are 13-9 through December, and I mean we have a tough little 6 game road trip coming up, but I think they can still keep winning. They look legit. I don't think these wins are by accident and like they're 13-9. We'll see how they are in January. I think this team's they're gonna keep it up. I don't know if they're gonna be as high as the fifth or fourth seed, whatever they're in right now, maybe all year long. But I mean, they're playing like a team that's gonna stay in those top 8 seeds for sure. And I mean that at least gets Sabonis as an all star for sure, because Sabonis is going to keep it up all year. He's going to stay at least consistent. Or Fox, he gets this bug, or maybe he has some bad shooting nights. He's not going to keep it up, scoring 30 points a game like he was in that one stretch where he won Player of the Week. Right, he had a crazy week, but Sabonis is going to be a little more consistent. I think if you had to choose between Fox and Sabonis is your all star. And like I said, like I think Halliburton is going to be an all star too. So it's just kind of funny, like what a trade, really.
Yeah. Well, both Halliburton and Sabonis would represent why their teams are succeeding.
Yeah, exactly.
Which expresses what not everybody, unfortunately, but what a lot of people have been saying, which is it was mutually beneficial to both teams to basically the same degree. The Kings are like, you saw them play. The Kings are a better team than the Pacers. But in the long run, Halliburton really pay off. So it's just like at the end of the day, it's just like, but that doesn't produce the storylines or the headlines, I guess, if they both benefit. There's got to be a winner and a loser, I guess. But we talked about Halliburton and Buddy Hield, I think, for like 2 straight weeks. And it's interesting because, the game was last week, I know, but there's just some interesting comments to point to, I think. And I want to start this off by making maybe not a controversial statement, but one that would be disagreed with, I think. And I totally understand why. But from my perspective, I kind of respect Buddy Hield a little bit more.
Why?
Kind of, to put it concisely, I think Buddy Hield is who he is. Halliburton is a young guy, and I think he kind of avoids being honest with himself. At least right now. I think that'll change. But, he's still really a young guy. He's a young man. But, I think one of the things that Halliburton was talking about was like kind of the common theme, both pregame and postgame in Sacramento, was that like he kind of pointed to the fact he's just like, well, yeah, it's like the media who takes what I say out of context and stuff like that. And he made specific mention postgame that it was the like losing culture comments that is giving him a bunch of heat, and that he's not setting the narrative around him that everybody else around him is. And this isn't a big deal. This is not a condemnation of his character or who he is or the kind of player he is or whatever he is off the floor. He sounds like a terrific guy, and he's a great player, and Kings fans have every reason to cheer for him. I have nothing but respect for him. But in this regard, it's just like, man, something about being a little dishonest. Because I feel like the thing that really kind of said a lot about Halliburton. I feel stupid saying this because, I consider myself an adult, and talking about it in an Instagram post is being kind of the central aspect of this, I guess, kerfuffle. I don't know, is kind of odd, admittedly. But that whole Instagram post kind of seemed to be the reason. I feel like he was avoiding that the whole time. He never said anything about that. And it's also interesting that he says that the media is forming these narratives. And quite honestly, I would point to the main culprit as being JJ Redick, your friend and person that you keep going on the podcast to. Mm-hmm. And again, this is no condemnation of Halliburton, but there's just a bit of no accountability. He's not really honest with himself. And I think he's slowly gaining recognition. I think he's come a long way. He even pointed it out post game on last Wednesday that his perspectives kind of changed. He saw himself as being maybe a little immature when that trade first happened. He was big enough to say that, and all props to him on that. But there's still ways to go, it appears. Whereas Buddy Hield, he gets asked before the game, well, what's gonna happen if they boo you? And he's just like, he kind of scoffed. He's like, oh, fans are entitled to their opinion. I still make millions of dollars playing a game, so I'm not worried. And I was just kind of like, wow, what a dick. But I don't know.
That's
He
such
is
a
who he
buddy
is.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's just a small point, and I don't want to linger on it too long, but I just thought it was interesting and noteworthy. I mean, that game was such a big deal. It was an awesome game for the Kings from their perspective, and there was that whole narrative, whether we like it or not. And quite frankly, it's kind of silly, and I feel silly talking about it, but I have to point that out. It's just kind of interesting.
Fair
But
point.
yeah,
Do you think Halliburton suffers a little from main character syndrome?
I have no idea. I'm not a psychologist. But yeah, probably. I mean, that kind of seems like for our generation down, everybody, it seems like they kind of have a little bit of a kind of a stuck in the mirror vibe,
Yeah, he kind of gives that off, right? But
Yeah, and I think that's being young. Everybody kind of like, I know, maybe not everybody, because I know a lot of immature people that are older than me, but I know a lot of people that are around my age or older than me too, and I would like to say for even myself, like, kind of grow up. You move on from that a little bit. And how old is Halliburton? He's like really young. I don't know off the top of my head, but
yeah, I think he's 22. I think he's 22, 22, 3. Because I think we got him when he was 21, so he's probably 23 now.
super young. It's like,
Yes.
man. So it's just like, again, it's no condemnation of him. It's just interesting, and it's like I said, he's just got a ways to go. And compared to Buddy, it just seems like you can tell who the more real one is.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I guess Buddy's a little older, but I totally get where you're coming from. But he's kind of like whatever, He doesn't hold it. He doesn't feel like he was personally attacked by being traded. And Buddy was probably happy on top of everything.
Yeah, he didn't want to be in Sacramento.
No. So I mean, I totally hear where you're coming from. I don't know. I try not to think about those guys too much anymore. I was kind of surprised how much Buddy got booed during
Yeah.
the game, because I said in the podcast last week, I'm like, yeah, like I think he'll get booed maybe a little, like when he's announced, but not during the game. But he was kind of getting that Bagley treatment a little. I mean,
Just about.
I can see why. I can see why for sure, but I was definitely still surprised that he definitely got it that much. But whatever, like you said, fans aren't fans are entitled to what they want to do. He still makes millions of dollars playing the game. Didn't bother him.
I heard that. I laughed. That was so funny. I know. What more do you need to hear from him?
Right.
But it was funny. It was also nice that he got off to a nice start to the game and then just kind of disappeared.
Yeah. I mean, they all disappeared. That was a smackdown.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it felt
the
nice.
only guy that was doing well was Jalen Smith, and he got knocked in the face.
Yeah, by Monk, right? Yeah, Monk knocked him out. Yeah, Jalen Smith was on fire. He had like 16 third quarter points until he got that elbow from Monk.
It was Monk.
yeah, that was crazy. I felt bad for him. It looked like it hurt. It looks like he bit his tongue or something.
Yeah, they called it like a mouth. I wonder what happened, but I don't want to get off track there.
Yeah. Malik Monk, dude. Taking
names.
Yeah.
Well, Malik Monk, I mean, six man player of the year.
Six man of the year.
It should be called a 6-man player of the year.
The 6-man player. Is it not? Is it not sometimes called that?
6-man player of the year award?
6 MPOTY? Player of the year? I don't know. I feel like sometimes it is. I think it is called that.
Are you screwing around?
Dude, no, I think you're right. I think it's called the 6-man player of the year award.
All right, 6-man player of the year award.
Let's look at it real quick.
Let's figure it out.
Player. Maybe no, I don't think we're right. I don't think I'm right. See, I don't know. 6-man player of the year NBA. No, it's called the NBA 6-man of the year.
6-man of the year.
Yeah, there's no player.
Yes. He's a 6-man player of the year.
6-man player of the year. No, but I mean, he is gonna. he's given like a really good case to be the 6-man player of the year, right? Just gonna refer
You
to it.
keep saying 6-man player of the year, and I'm imagining like 6 midgets in like a trench coat. He's the player of the year.
Just 6 men playing.
Yeah,
Let's go.
small people. I don't want to. I don't know what you're supposed to say, but I apologize. Getting back on track, Malik Monk. And I think we pointed this out after the Clippers game. The reason that the Kings, one of the reasons, aside from good defense, which we covered quite extensively, I think one of the reasons that the Kings really kept the foot on the gas pedal, I guess, to use that one for the 100th time against the Clippers was among other things like the Clippers missing their some of the like 3 best scorers or whatever. It was the fact that, and it was really highlighted. It's kind of been this way, and credit to Katie Christensen for like just pointing it out, which it just kind of verbalized it. That man, Monk. One of the good ways to look at his impact is that, especially when we're talking about Sabonis being so important to this team, is that when he goes off the floor, it's not his replacement at that position, but Malik Monk that really kind of picks up the slack, so to speak. He, in a similar way, we were talking about, well, if Sabonis hits a 3, it unlocks his game even more. And his game's already so unlocked, especially with the guys around him, with the things he's able to do. And we're seeing that with Monk when he drives to the rim. He was saying, I think after the Bulls game, he's like, yeah, the facilitating's great because I do it so much that now I just get free looks at the rim because guys are just expecting me to pass it. And so it's made his offense at the rim easier, which was really interesting. And in terms of having a dynamic impact, in terms of both ends of the floor, energy wise, and kind of leadership and kind of keeping everybody together, and that's kind of his locker room role. He when they lost 3 straight, he said, he's gonna make sure nobody separates. Not that anybody was at risk of separating, but we know how this team has been in the past. Even though it feels like completely different teams, it feels so long ago, just 20 something games into this season. But Malik Monk, in that way, it's just like, not only is he 6-man player of the year, I think, making a good case for that. But and we talked about this at the beginning of the season. We've alluded to it. I don't know. I kind of think Malik Monk might be the 3rd best player on this team.
He's 100% playing like it right now. He is the 3rd best player on the team in this, last. I don't know. I felt like month really hurt her slow down a little, so that kind of has impacted his value. Of course, he's not hitting. It doesn't seem like he's hitting the 3 as well as he was to start off the year. But he's still playing well. But Monk, that spark off that bench, he does it all. He's just such a good scorer, and he plays such an important role as that 6-man player. And just his facilitating and passing, which is just such a nice added bonus that I don't think anyone really expected him to do. He's playing good defense. He is stepping into that leadership role as well. He's kept us in many games throughout the year so far, and he's scoring. He's definitely picked up Fox's scoring load since Fox is kind of taking a back seat with the bug, but he's right now he's the 3rd best player on this team for sure. And even within the last 6 games, you can argue he's been the 2nd best player over the past 6 games. But on the year, it's definitely Fox number 2. But he's playing better than Fox right now. I think so. He's so efficient, really, with the ball.
Just considering his impact on both ends. I mean, Fox has been great defensively, and so much credit goes to him there. But it's just like sometimes offensively, it's not necessarily that he's been terrible, but it's like, I don't know. You almost kind of feel like Fox hasn't needed to take over or anything like that, and nor has he, But Monk does that. So I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's he's. Yeah, I don't have much more to say on Monk. He's been awesome, really. I don't know who's up for the award, and I think Hero and I think Benedict I don't know, how do you say his last name? Mathurin? Is that
Mathurin. Yeah, or
Mathurin? Okay.
I was calling him Mathurin all throughout the draft process, and I'd heard that before. But
I don't know. But yeah, Mathurin, he's having a really good year as a rookie off the bench. But
he's really good because we got to see him last
yeah,
week.
he killed
He
us.
just
He had a good
they,
game.
he's gets to the line. He's tough. He's very confident. It's
Yeah.
just he he almost doesn't look like a rookie.
No,
Like,
he doesn't look like a rookie at all. That dude was that dude was not afraid attacking that rim.
yeah, he just
But
became a baller day one. It's
yeah, it's crazy.
wild.
I know. Well, I mean, if we're done with Monk, are you have anything
Well,
more to say?
just to point it out, in Monk's last 9 games, just to make the case here,
Yeah.
and hopefully this can be carried forward in his last 9 games, because this is like kind of realistic. I mean, like, I don't know if the points will be able to get up there, but it's just like, yeah, he's been averaging 18.6 points off the bench in the last 9 games. With his 4.1 assists, his over 1 steal a game, and obviously the energy impact that we were talking about. It's just, I don't know. And then it's a testament too to why the Kings are one of the top scoring benches in the league. And he leads the charge, and it just seems like everybody on the bench has been really, really good, especially
Yeah,
lately.
The Kings' bench in general has been fantastic, and he's obviously the lead off that bench. But Mitchell's been playing well as of late. Metu's been stepping it up, grabbing boards, scoring points, and then your mixture. Lyles hasn't really been playing. He was sick as well, and it seems like he's coming off the bench for KZ. Um, and Terrence Davis, he's a microwave when he's in the game. Sometimes he'll just go off. So that bench has been huge for the Kings this year. And something just like defense, they lacked over this last 16 years. They never had any depth. They never had a bench. So it's nice that you can rely on guys coming off the bench, and they're not the starters, but they definitely keep you in the ball game well enough. So that's something that's been really nice to see this year.
It's interesting because kind of thinking about the bench here. Now Mike Brown, it's become a little tougher because Mike Brown has talked about how he historically has liked smaller rotations, and now it's like, well, okay, you got Monk and Mitchell and Metu; those guys are locks to play, and then you basically have Lyles, Davis, and Okpala. Like, 2 of those 3 guys can also play, and Okpala has now made it very difficult. Credit to him. Since the game in Boston, when he started to get a little bit of playtime there, um, it he just seems like an NBA player, which was one of the critiques of him when he was getting those starter minutes in the rotation. It just felt like he didn't have an idea of where to be. His idea of spacing was off. It just kind of seemed like it's like this guy's been in the league for 3 years already. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
It just seemed like what the heck? But with time, practice time, and whatnot, he's put it together, and he stayed ready, which that is a testament also to the bench. I mean, like, Monk and Mitchell have kind of always had their roles, but Lyles, Okpala had the minutes over Lyles at the beginning of the season. Lyles had to stay ready. Metu was not in the rotation at all to start the season. He had to stay ready. And now it's the same thing with Okpala, kind of like contrasted here, or I mean, kind of off of Lyles in reverse fashion. But now it's just kind of become more difficult in the best way possible for Brown to distribute minutes. And he has far more leeway to go with matchups, hot hands, whatever the deal is. And so you want a more defensive minded, you need a guy maybe to go up and disrupt somebody like he did against DeMar DeRozan. Okpala's the guy. Maybe you need a little bit of rebounding depth, and you want a little bit of 3-point shooting or something. You got Trey Lyles. If you need a spark, kind of almost a Monk Jr. is Terrence Davis, because Terrence Davis does a lot of the same things Monk will do. He's aggressive. He'll get to the rim. He doesn't maybe distribute as well as Monk, but you'll see him flip alley-oops to Metu just like Monk does.
Yeah.
And also, he's made a lot of difference on the defensive end. He looks really great. I mean, like there's had to be some moments. I know like in the first game of the season, he got called out for making a mistake, or maybe it was in the preseason. And then obviously that moment we alluded to earlier against Phoenix, but he always bounces back and makes the adjustments. And he's coming out and he's playing good defense. And he's always playing hard. Contract year, but he's also an undrafted player, and he's probably always going to have that mentality.
Yeah, very true.
I don't know. This bench has just been terrific, and I think it's like it just seems like it's one guy after the other. You know, it's like Monk. We find out Monk's really good, and it's like Lyle steps up, and Davion Mitchell kind of really like embraces his role and figures it out. You know, and then Terrence Davis goes off for God knows how many against the Nets and other similar bursts of scoring. And now you got, and Metu steps up to be the backup five. And now you have Okpala making it difficult. And shoot, man, that's exactly what you want to see. And we were talking about it at the beginning of the season. It's like this team's got depth, and they're finally showing it. I think with the Rashawn Holmes thing and everything, it just seemed like, what happened there? That seemed like a strength of this team, and then it didn't. And now it's come back with even more force.
I know, it's so weird that Rashawn Holmes is on the bench. Just imagine if that dude was actually playing.
Imagine if he played like
Metu.
Imagine if he played like Metu.
Yeah,
he'd be a stronger Metu.
Yeah, that bench would be so good. I'm so upset with Holmes.
Holmes is arguably Holmes right now. I mean, Holmes is shooting like 50% from three this year.
Like 2 attempts. The floor. Where's Alex Len? He was shooting the ball really well in what Euro basket? What was it called? Was that what it was called?
Yeah, Euro basket. He shot like 38% or something.
Yeah, he was money. But I get it. You can't. Len, it's.
I keep thinking about Len. I'm just like, I think they're just gonna let him play out his contract, and I just don't see how he gets on the floor unless like we talk about like it's very specific matchups, like where you need him to battle with somebody for a second.
Yeah, like Nurkic or another big white guy, really. Nurkic or Jokic really come to mind, or Valanciunas, right?
Yeah. And it's like I keep kind of pushing off the idea of like bringing up Keita, and it's like, man, if like you have an injury or two at the center position where guys are sidelined for a bit and like Len needs to step into rotational minutes, I would be in favor of bringing up Keita and giving him rotational minutes over Len. Honestly,
yeah, I would.
Maybe start with Len, but have Keita there.
That's fair.
Because I just feel like Len is just so big, and he's trimmed down a little bit this year, but he's just far too slow for the modern NBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's what's keeping him off the floor is that speed. I like Len too. You know, he's like the enforcer kind of guy, but
I mean, he in garbage time, I think against the Pacers, he had like 3 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, he's a
giant.
Yeah. That's it. He's just a giant.
Yeah.
It'd
be interesting. It'd be interesting when they played Denver for the first time. They got that kind of like 2-game series against Denver at the end of the month. So
really,
it'd be interesting.
Back-to-back games.
Yeah, in Sacramento. It'll be fun.
Oh, well, that's good. At least they're in Sac.
Yeah. But not to just as a whole though. Looking at there's like 6 guys: Davion Mitchell, Malik Monk, Terrence Davis, Okpala, Lyles, and Metu. You have 6 viable guys off the bench. That's crazy.
I know. And some of those guys, I'm like Metu and Okpala. It's like, I didn't think those guys were really going to do much. Even Davis, I was kind of questionable about. I like Davis, but I'm like, let's see if he can do it off the bench in inconsistent minutes. And he has, and that's just been such a big plus as well. That bench was supposed to be Mitchell, Monk, and Holmes. Like those were supposed to be the leaders, right? And maybe a little bit of Trey Lyles. And Lyles has played well this year for sure. And I hope, I know Okpala has kind of taken his minutes deservingly the last couple of games, but I want to see Lyles see the floor a little more. We're big Trey Lyles fans, and I think he just does everything right. But no, it's definitely been nice to see everyone step up. But yeah, I mean, the bench is one of our biggest assets for this unit, or this team. But
two final notes on the bench, just because I feel like we were almost making the argument that Chimezie Metu had no place on this team. like both before the season started, during the preseason, and at the very beginning of the season, the first couple of games. We were essentially under the impression that, hey, what is this guy doing here? Everybody else kind of made sense. And boy, it's just like, I feel very bad about that. He hasn't been perfect, but in terms of like finding a way to make an impact, getting in there, making that impact, and doing it pretty consistently, it works. And his energy just absolutely fits. It's perfect for the bench unit. And like Mike Brown said, Chimezi Metu being a completely different player than DeMarcus Cousins can be a good thing because now defenses have to prepare for two different centers, two completely different styles of play, and you can see it out there when Metu's out there. There's always these energy dunks. There's like 2 or 3 a game.
Yeah, all alley oop after alley oop. I feel like every
Yeah.
game he's at least throwing one down from, like you said, Monk or Davis. And that's what I said. That's one thing I'll give myself credit to. I do owe Chimezi Metu an apology because I was one of his biggest haters. But I did give him credit that that dude has some energy with his dunking, and
Yeah.
it's always fun to watch. And you always know when it's going to happen. It's always on a fast break, and Monk has it. It's like, all right, let's see it. And talking about a good dunker, just because I'm on the topic, how about Malik Monk? That dude is just
Oh my God. Yeah, he
He's-
double clutched against the Bulls.
yeah, oh, man, he's fun. He's such a fun player. I'm so glad we got him. I
Yeah,
think
it's-
one of our better signings in a long time. What a
Yeah.
thank
They
Fox
need
for
they need
that.
to have like a I don't know. No. I don't know. Monk is probably you're gonna see a lot more zeros out there that are not Halliburton. You're gonna start to see Monks fill it up.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Very true. He's definitely becoming a fan favorite quick. A great spark off the bench. That dude does so much for the team, and like we said, I think he's the third best player right now on this team.
Yeah.
Hats off to him.
Yeah, it's very, to his credit there. But kind of moving on, like moving away from the bench, but in a similar light. There's a 6-game road trip up ahead, and one of the last point I wanted to make about the bench, especially probably I would expect Lyles and Davis in particular. You're going on a 6-game road trip in 10 or 9 or 10 days,
Mm-hmm.
and you got 6 guys off the bench that play very well. You have an opportunity to be able to kind of like alternate here, use some fresh legs to your advantage off the bench. And so you don't see Lyles or Davis play in the first 2 games or 3 games, but once that back-to-back starts lingering in everybody's mind, you might see, kind of a switch there, and that might be able to. This kind of like, I guess, highlights the depth that might work to their advantage because they've got a tough trip here. That if you had to just look at it and be really honest, a lot of people are like, "Ooh, they probably go 2-4 on this trip," just because they play some really good teams, and you also got Detroit and the Knicks in there. But I don't know. Interesting point about the bench, some fresh legs, but also just looking ahead at this trip. What are you thinking about it? You think 2-4 is too down in the dumps? You think they can go 3-3 or pull out a winning record here?
I think they can go 3-3. Like you said, they should be able to win those Knicks and Pistons games, just the way they've been playing as of late. And I don't know, the Bucks game is going to be rough, and so is that Sixers game. But I mean, they already beat the Cavs once this year. Yeah, I was at home, but I can see them pulling out. I can see them pulling out one between the Bucks, Cavs, and Sixers. Just the way this isn't the same Kings anymore. I'm not thinking about the Kings like, oh yeah, like trying to be optimistic. Like optimistic last year on this stretch was 2-4. And to be clear, the schedule is the Bucks on Wednesday, Cavs on Friday, Knicks on Sunday, Sixers Tuesday, Raptors Wednesday. I missed the Raptors, and then Pistons Friday. So, and I think they can beat the Raptors as well. I mean, they're a good team, so I think you can go. I think you can pull off 3-3. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think you definitely can. I think just to start with that game against the Bucks, it's interesting because the last game of the last real road trip, was against the Celtics, and the Celtics showed the Kings what a contender looks like when they put it all together for 4 quarters and really just put the knife to your neck there at the end. It'll be interesting to see what they do on the first game of this road trip against another championship, level team, the Eastern Conference champion and world champion of a couple of years ago. So that'll be interesting, and I think that the Kings will be able to perform pretty well in that game. I think it's the first game of the road trip, 2 days off. Obviously, they have to travel, but there's 2 days off. They should be kind of. I mean, they'll have the fullest tank that they will on this 9-day trip. So that could be fun. But I mean, can they make it a game? Can they win it? Can they not repeat what happened in Boston? I think that'll be a really interesting thing. Because if they win that game, then it's just like, oh man, you're off to a great start on that road trip, and it's like 3-3 is now like baseline.
Yeah, exactly. You push 4-2 at that point.
Yeah, and then it's like if they play the Bucks and lose, but they play pretty well, and like 2-4 might sound like decent. You might start like walking away being like, well, at least you won a couple. I don't know. The expectations could really, like, for the whole road trip could kind of be contingent on this first game in a way. So it'll be interesting.
I see it.
And then you got
Tough way to start off, right?
Yeah, and then you got Cleveland, who you beat on your home floor. They're gonna bring it. They're still really, really good. You got the Knicks off a 1-day arrest. A nice matinee for us on the West Coast. And, we'll see what happens there. That'll be a kind of an opportunity to win, but those are always the toughest ones. Then you got your back-to-back, Philadelphia and Toronto. That seems like that sucks.
Yeah, that's a rough back-to-back.
That's not fun. And then you got Detroit. And again, it's like that's another. Obviously, they're not nearly as good as the Cavaliers, but the Pistons got beat on your home floor, and they played. They made it a game, and that was interestingly enough, like right before the Kings went on their road trip. This will be the last game of the road trip. The Kings will be kind of itching to get home. It might have that same kind of potentiality for something kind of bad to happen, but this has been highlighted as probably one of the two tough, because they have another one at the end of January into February that's tough too. But this is right there, man. This is difficult, especially when you start off with the Bucks and the Cavaliers.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a tough East Coast road trip. A lot of good teams. You're playing 4 playoff teams at the moment, and then the Knicks and the Pistons. So, and then a couple of those, the Raptors and what was it, the back-to-back with the Raptors and the
76ers.
Yeah.
So you go from Philly to Toronto.
I have hope in 3-3. I hope Fox can really get back on track, because they're gonna need him to start scoring like 25 plus like he was doing before he got sick. That's going to be key for sure. Sabonis going to have some good matchups. He's going to go against Embiid. He's going to go against why am I blanking? Third,
you got
I think I went. Okay, maybe that was it. I mean, I think Siakam's playing the center this year, right?
I have no idea what they're doing in Toronto. But
yeah, I really don't either.
They figure it out. They do pretty well.
Yeah, and then maybe we'll see some KZ Okpala tomorrow against Giannis. That seems like a KZ game over a Trey Lyles game, right?
Yeah.
So
that'll be interesting to see how they can try to handle.
Yeah, it's
one of the toughest guards in history in terms of how to protect the guy. It's like, but we're talking about this team playing cohesively as a unit. Maybe that's the best approach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's gonna be definitely the hardest game, just because the Bucks are the best team on that trip.
And to your point earlier, that's really one, like you're saying, with all of the games on this road trip, but particularly that first one against such a good player and team a Fox becomes a huge X factor.
He needs to pick it up. He needs to.
Yeah, you're on another floor. You can kind of get away with it. You score 16 or 18 on the home floor, and the fans are going nuts, and everybody's just got a bunch of energy.
Right.
When nobody's kind of in your corner there, and everything's riding against you. Fox. It's kind of imperative that he kind of shows up, and I think that's kind of the setting. Hopefully, too, if he's feeling better, which he seemed to have a little bit better energy. Interestingly enough, in the second game of the back-to-back, in both games of the back-to-back, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. He's definitely a guy to watch, as always.
Yes, he's. I mean, as we're gassing up Sabonis earlier in this podcast, saying he's the best player, but it doesn't mean Fox is any less valuable. Like, they both need to be on this road trip if they want to win some of these games. And I think they can do 3-3, but these guys have to be playing, their best basketball. It all starts with both of them. It starts with both. So
it's just hard to get away. It's hard to get away from that fact that it's just like it's a 2-man foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Everything comes off of those two. So we'll see. Tough road trip, but I'm gonna say 3-3. I guess we'll talk in 2 weeks and
Well, let's start with the first three.
Yeah,
because
first three.
Last week we came off of 3 straight losses. This week we're coming off of 3 straight wins. What are we going to be coming off of next week?
So we have
It's going to be Bucks, Cavs,
Knicks.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say 1-2.
That's fair.
And then
I'm gonna say they win that game in Milwaukee, lose in Cleveland, and beat the Knicks. I'm gonna go real optimistic because I feel like this defense is rolling, especially if they can beat Milwaukee to start. I mean, then that just that really sets the tone for the whole road trip and even just this first 3 games of it.
Mm-hmm.
But Cleveland's going to be tough. I just don't know if they can win that game. I just feel like Cleveland's going to come back with a vengeance.
Yeah, I feel that too. Cleveland, they're not going to want to lose those twice, especially on their home court. So,
although that'll be Mike Brown's first game as a head coach there in some time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I didn't even think about that.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, no, I had a star next to it from like the beginning of the season when I was like highlighting game. What are going to be big games? And I highlighted that one. Mike Brown's return. I couldn't figure it out though. I'm like, why has this got a star next to it?
I didn't even think about it either. Yeah, I guess Mike Brown is returning. So that'll be fun. That'll mean a lot to him, and hope the crowd gives him a nice applause. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough game for sure. Tough. It's just a tough stretch. I'm gonna say it again. That's like we said, it's one of our hardest stretches of the year. So 3-3, calling it here. 1-2, and then they're somehow gonna beat the Pistons, and then I think they can take the Sixers. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that next week. But I would love for it to be 2-1, like you said. But we'll see.
That's up to them.
That's up to them. That
all they can do is listen to us and execute.
But they listen to this on their plane ride over.
Yeah, it's a long one. I don't know how long the flight is to Milwaukee.
Yeah, probably an hour 15, just like this podcast.
That's right.
Yeah,
they could probably squeeze in a few if they're falling behind.
Yeah, exactly. But what were you gonna say? Yeah.
Well, kind of transitioning on to probably our last topic here. I feel like it was Barnes at the beginning of the season in terms of somebody you just kind of keep an update on, but almost it seems fitting. And I don't know why I didn't realize this at the beginning of the season, but kind of a rookie update is kind of a good thing, especially considering the fact that, over the last month, Keegan Murray's 3 has not fallen. And I think as we pointed out last week, that 3 really unlocks a lot of things for his game. But the 2 aspects that it does not necessarily unlock are the 2 aspects that he's really, one, he's continually done. And 2, he's really started to show, particularly in these last couple of games over this last week and a half or so, 2 weeks. One is the rebounding, and then 2 is his defense. And at the same time, in these last couple of games, his confidence seems a little bit it wasn't ever down, but it just seems like a little bit revamped, and he's executing a little bit better. But again, it's just like his work on the glass, his effort. I mean, everybody's work on the glass on that team is really good, and everybody on that defense is playing really, really well. But I was talking about to kind of talk about his defense here. I was mentioning that like the weak side defense has been really good for this team, as Mike Brown has commended multiple times over the last week or two. And one of the guys that's really good at that is Kevin Huerter. He'll come away with a steal or have some good help. But another guy over the last couple of games that's been doing the same thing is Keegan Murray. And I don't know. He just looks great. And you saw him even outside of that context. His transition defense. He had that transition block. It was against the Bulls. And I think he comes up with a lot of blocks on that end. And I think he leads the team in blocks, not with a ton, but he's a really savvy and good player. And despite the fact that his three's not falling, he's continually found ways to impact the game. And it seems like those have kind of improved and started to blossom a little bit more. And I don't know. He got some garbage time against the Clippers and was able to put in a couple of threes, and he ended up with 23 points. And he had another decent game another solid game, I would say, against the Bulls. I would say a good game, actually, I guess, because he talked about his impact on both ends of the floor. So it seems like I wouldn't say he's really slumping so much right now. Maybe it's 3-point shot, but I feel like even that is he's coming out of it. And I don't know, Keegan Murray's looked pretty good. It's like over the last 3. What do you think?
Yeah, he's definitely looked a lot better over the last 3. I mean, he set his career high against the Clippers, and it was a lot in garbage time. But I mean, like we look at Keegan, it's like, yeah, he's a stretch 4, right? Like a lot of his, we put a lot on him to hit that 3. But like you said, he's a lot more than that. His rebounding has been looking good, and his defense it's been pretty solid all year. So we can't overlook those things, right? And try not to. I think he's a good cutter. I think he mishandles a lot of passes and makes some. I don't know. He's a good cutter, but his finishing with after the cut can be questionable early on. But I think that's just him being a rookie. And I don't know. I question his confidence, especially with some of those drop passes on the cuts and maybe some of the misses near the rim. But he had a nice post game. I don't know. I think he talked with Kyle and Kenny or whoever was doing it, and he was just like, after he scored his career high against the Clippers, he's just like, yeah, it's like I know the type of player I am, and like I'm a good player, and this team has my back. So it doesn't seem like his confidence is gone. He knows who he is. Maybe that shot just isn't falling right now, and I know that's kind of like the key issue of what everyone's looking at. And it does hurt the team a little, right? I mean, imagine if Keegan was playing like he was to start off the season and how he was in preseason and summer league. Like this team might have a couple more wins, and that's saying something too, because they won a lot of games in November, right? And that's when he struggled. But I don't know. Like I think he's fine. He's a rookie. It's nice that a couple threes have been falling for him over the last couple games, and hopefully that can pick back up. Because once that 3 starts falling again, and he does everything else pretty decently for a rookie. I hope his catching ability after cuts gets a little better. I just see him, mishandle some balls. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see him start playing a little better because he needed to. He had a really rough November.
Mm. Yeah, I just feel like there's not a better lesson. I think in retrospect, we'll just look at it, be able to say there's not a better lesson than coming into the league and lighting it up from 3, to where you have opposing broadcasters. I know Bob Fitzgerald of the Warriors was saying it's like, the scouting report, they got, don't leave Murray alone. And it's like, you don't put that on everybody. You don't necessarily put that on rookies ever. And that was the scouting report coming out of summer league, and especially through the first couple of games. And then that drops off, and all of a sudden the thing that really unlocked your whole game is gone for a second, not forever, and you've got to find another way to make a similar impact. And it's been a journey, but quite frankly, when you think about it, just a couple of weeks, um, he's made a lot of progress. And of course, he also had his off the floor issues, which could have just kind of spun things out for a second there. But to kind of have the composure, which he's always had, to kind of come back and get up here, I guess it's just in the big picture. That's good, and it's kind of what we all expected. But also, in terms of like, what was that last point you said? I had another point here. What was that last thing you were saying? I thought, dang it.
I don't even remember him not being able to hit the three, but
I was gonna say no. I was gonna say
okay.
because you were pointing out that he was like mishandling balls, and sometimes he does lose the ball. And like, I know, and again, maybe if anybody's listening that watched him at Iowa a little bit more, I know that like ball handling was kind of his biggest knock, I guess, coming out of college. And I don't know if Butterfingers kind of thing ever was a problem, or if that's just like slight mental lapses that will get mended. I don't know. I guess I'm asking for a little more insight there, but you're making a good point there. I mean, he does. He's not a. He's not going to be on the hands team if he's on a football team. He's not going to be returning onside kicks.
Yeah, and just to bring up a point, kind of related to Murray, is that I saw. So I run a Facebook group. I help moderate one called Kingsland on Facebook, and there's a lot of Iowa fans that came over into the group once we drafted Murray. And I saw someone comment like about Murray's struggles, and he's like, "Yeah, like this dude in college, because I didn't watch him in college, and so I'm not really familiar. But he's just like this person said, like, yeah, like Murray in college, like his 3-point shot didn't really come around till later. Like he was like a post up guy, like that, and that was his go to in college. Like he was playing down low, and so like he's like, yeah, he was saying that we use Murray too much in like off the perimeter, but it's like you kind of have to. That's why we drafted him. But it sounds like he's still trying to learn that. So maybe that's why he struggles. It's kind of hard to believe because it's like he was shooting so well in summer league and in the preseason and early on this year. But um, I don't know. Maybe it sounds like the three ball is still a little new to him, especially the rate he shoots it in the NBA or is expected to. So I think that was something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's because we were talking about Chris Murray last week, and we were noting the reverse because Keegan Murray developed inside out basically, whereas Chris Murray, the better shooter of the two, is developing outside in essentially. So, that's why like I think some people were joking when like Keegan Murray was hitting all these threes. Like, is that Chris? Because
That's funny.
he's nailing them, and it makes so much sense. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
no, it makes a lot. It makes a ton of sense because you watch. They'll comment on that if you watch Iowa games now. It seems like, where they'll kind of mention that because they try not to bring up Chris's brother so much because Chris is deserving of so much respect himself. The only reason that team got into the top 25 there for a second was because of Chris Murray, and I don't know what he's done in the last couple of games, but he picked it right back up, and he's primed for a really good year. And as we talked about last week, we'll see where he lands in the draft. It'll be interesting. But back to Keegan, it's a process. It'll be interesting to see what he does on a 6-game road trip because the road troubles have definitely been troubles for him, which is expected with a rookie. But you've had a couple of road trips here. You had kind of a mini version of the 6-game road trip during Thanksgiving week. So hopefully he's warmed up for it, ready to go, and kind of can tie things together and kind of keep stringing together positive performances to, I guess, get us to stop talking about him.
Yeah, I would love nothing more. So yeah, he hasn't really performed that well on the road, and he's still trying to overcome that November slump, and it seems like he's getting out of it. So that's be a good test for Keegan. Nothing easy against good teams. Let's see if he can really claw himself out of that slump on the road. That'd be huge for him. But we'll see. Maybe he'll just, I don't know. He doesn't really look that good on the road this year. So I guess it'll just be interesting to see what he does. I hope he plays better on this road trip than he has on the past ones.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on.
Definitely. But is that it? You got anything else?
I think that's a clean cut there at the end. That's just there you go.
All right.
I think that's everything. Yeah.
I think that's everything too. Well, sweet. Thanks for all of you who tuned in to this week's episode. There's a big 6 game road trip coming up. Starting off with the Bucks, going to Cleveland, and then I don't know. I started this. Then New York, on to Philadelphia, Toronto, and ending in Detroit. So a lot to be interested in this road trip. See what the Kings can do. But what do you have to do to wrap this up, John?
Just keep. We started with defense. Defense has been such a pivotal thing. We always knew it was going to be pivotal. We knew the offense was going to be able to score. It'd be important to play defense on the road, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. All right. Well, if that's it, then I want to thank you all again for joining us. And until next time, have a good one.